This evening, Books and Books is thrilled to welcome back our good friend Diana Abu Jaber, presenting her new book, Life Without a Recipe. Diana is the author of such highly acclaimed books as The Language of Baklava, Crescent, Origin, and Birds of Paradise. Tonight, she's going to be joined in conversation by another great friend of Books and Books, Ms. Ana Menendez, the author of such books as In Cuba, I Was a German Shepherd, Adios, Happy Homeland. A lot of us were German Shepherds in Cuba. Adios, Happy Homeland, and The Last War. Please welcome Diana and Anna.
I'll start. Thank you all for being here. And it's a real special treat, as always, to be in Books and Books, and especially to be with a good friend who I adore as much as I adore her writing. So I feel very privileged to be here and to help start this conversation.
As do I, my dear.
So I want to make this a conversation, but I also want Diana to read from this gorgeous, gorgeous book. I read it in one evening. I meant to just read a couple pages, and I think it was 2 a.m. by the time I put it down, with tears flowing down my face. A gorgeous, gorgeous book, and there's so much beauty and honesty, and we'll talk about all of this. But I'd like to start with a short reading, because the book revolves around three really formidable characters. Grandmother Grace, your father, Bud, and of course, little Gracie. And so I'd like for you to, if you can read from just a small section of when you first meet Grace, your daughter.
I will be happy to. So the section, this is so impressive. Anna put all these Post-it notes in here.
And I hope you can read my handwriting.
Yes, I think I understand my instructions.
It's like the teacher in Me Never Dies.
Yeah.
And the mother of a toddler. It's
Right. She has a young one. This section is when we are racing to the hospital when our daughter's about to be born. And we are going through the rain. It's crazy. There's traffic. And there's just a lot of kind of suspense, actually. And it looks like this is the scene of basically just getting into the place. The short winter day is already arcing toward its close. On the highway, I see shreds of unexpected color in the sky, the clouds high and massing like their own mysterious country, backlit and ineffable. But the traffic, the drivers race after each other's taillights on the rainy highway, throwing out spume. At one bend, we watch in the rearview mirrors 2 swerving cars collide just behind us like bumper cars, then spin off to either side of the road. We just keep going. Once we finally get there, it takes far too long to find the entrance to the hospital complex, too long to find parking, too long to run to the front door, for someone to direct us in our adrenalized, headlight-dazed state to the right lobby. We have to stand still and smile for photos, place and ID badges looped over our heads in order to be allowed to enter. Before sending us upstairs, the security guard with a short gray nimbus of curls stops us to squeeze our arms. He rumbles, "God bless you too." The corridor leading to the nursery has closed circuit monitors and a steel double door that unlocks with a mechanical thump, like something in a medium security prison. We speak our names into the intercom and the door vibrates, whirs open. Scott takes my hand. It's like walking on stage, only this stage is hushed and crowded with tiny, even breaths, and bassinets propped here and there on wheeled carts. The big room is shadowy, translucent with sleep. A nurse holding a clipboard looks up, smiling broadly. She says, "Scott and Diana." We stand still, surrounded by this galaxy of dreaming babies. I breathe. Which one? She lifts her chin. My arm is touching the bassinet. She's wearing one of their little knit caps, jaunty as an elf. Her slate gray eyes partially open, glimmering in a half state, watching just as though she's been expecting us. They wheel the bassinet into a private room. When the nurse lifts the drowsy, soft bundle into my arms, a sob breaks from my throat. My eyes flood with tears. The nurse turns away as she leaves the room. Scott's eyes are dark and wet as he touches her head. I don't know how to hold a baby. My hands feel big and clumsy. We're so new to each other. Her diaphanous fingers open and close carefully about my thumb. We feed her a minute bottle, then later, at the nurse's coaxing, dare to change her diaper. Her limbs rubbery, bent into froggy folds. Her paper ears lie flat against her head, intricate as origami. She is the color of my palm, soft as a blush, a song. I think I stopped there, right? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got all choked up reading it. I was like, oh, this is so touching.
It's so beautiful. And that there's so many parts of just really beautiful and unpretentious at the same time writing, like that last passage she read. My mother, the wise Maria, says people don't actually want to be untroubled and at peace, because the moment everything is going well, they will complicate their lives. And actually, when I was reading Fathers and Sons, the Turgenev novel, I came across this great passage. Every man hangs by a thread. Any minute the abyss may open under his feet, and yet he must go and invent for himself all kinds of troubles and spoil his life.
Yes.
But of all of this genre of sayings, my favorite has to be Scott's in the book, where he says to you when you first meet, fly fishing is for people who are privileged enough to needlessly complicate their lives.
Yes. Yeah.
So I laughed out loud when I came across that passage, because I think it also perfectly describes the decision that I also made to have a child for the first time in one's 40s.
Right.
And that's why I wanted you to start with that passage, because I think that passage goes a long way to explaining why. Right. It's not just a complication, but the why.
Right. Right.
Why else? I mean, it's beautiful.
I know why.
Yeah.
Why? I
Why
don't
do we
know.
do it?
I don't know. Right.
But I think that passage goes a long way to saying, this transcendent aspect of it that cannot be quantified.
Yeah, it's really true. There's a drive. There's a drive perhaps toward trouble, a drive toward complexity. I mean, Scott, I had to drag him kicking and screaming into parenthood. He was not into it. And after I beat him into submission, he would say to me, our lives are so good. Why do we want to do this? Why are we introducing this element of mayhem and uncertainty into our lives? And I guess that's why, because things are going good, things are calm, things are under control, and so we got to mess with it. We got to truly, I think it is a way of taking your life to another place. You're ready for that big adventure, and we were ready. We wanted that big, amazing. I wanted that big, amazing adventure, and then he did later.
But I've seen him with Gracie, and he is just completely into it.
Yeah, now he
He's
is.
so great with her.
Isn't that amazing? I didn't think he would ever agree to it. I honestly didn't. And I think I was reading a parenting blog before we finally came to our decision, where the wife said, my husband was really against having a child. She really didn't. My husband did not want to do it. I didn't think he would ever agree to it, and then he did. And it was reading that and getting that little inkling, like, oh, people change their minds about things and about big things like this, because it didn't occur to me that maybe this could actually happen. He was adamantly opposed. I cannot underscore that word adamantly enough. So,
But to be fair, I think you were probably also adamantly opposed for a very, very long time.
didn't we talk about like how we never were going to have
Yeah,
kids?
I think we did. We've known each other for, I don't know, 10 years or more.
Oh,
Yeah.
billions of years.
And this was our conversation right now.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
so
yeah.
happy. Everything's going so well.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it.
I
You're
feel
not going to do
fulfilled.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. We were so happy.
Yeah.
And now look at us. We're like,
Bags. in their mouth.
right. Falling apart wretches. Yeah. It's great.
But you did resist for a long time.
I did.
And I think,
I did.
I mean, how much of that had to do with the other Grace, your grandmother?
My grandmother,
Another
yeah.
formidable presence in this book,
Yes,
right? I mean,
yes.
she there's so, I mean, you have to, if nothing else, the quotes from Grace are just priceless in here. I'm gonna come up with a whole sheet of quotes from Grace. At one point she says, women will pour everything they have into a man. I mean, she says this derisively, of course.
Yes.
The worst thing you can do in your life is get married. And this is funny because reading this, I thought
from the men. The men are back here.
marriage is for men. We already know that. My grandmother used to say this to me. My grandmother, who chaperoned my mother until my mother got married, said to me one time, if I had to do it over again, I'd never get married, which really made my mother angry.
Yeah.
But you know, she's it came from a certain time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And she has this other great line where she says, "Never learn how to sew, cook, type, or iron. That's how they get you."
That's how they get you. That's how they get you. Yep.
And yet, I think that your grandmother would probably be absolutely delighted at your choice and what you've done with Gracie.
Yeah.
And I'd like for you to read a little bit about her, because she sounds, I didn't meet her, I didn't get to meet your father either, and they both sound like just amazing people.
Characters.
Yeah,
Yes.
characters.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
I mean,
Both of them.
They're just
Yeah.
fantastic. So this is when Diana, at 9, this is what separates Diana from the rest of us. At 9, she cooks a leg of lamb. So, she had no wonder I still can't cook a leg of lamb. She's been cooking since 9. Okay, so
Yes, that's a requirement. You must start at
Must start
9.
at 9.
Yes. This is when I thought that I had figured out a way to bring my father and my grandmother together, because Grace is my maternal grandmother, and so she did not approve of, you know, this man with a mustache who came and stole her only daughter away. And so it was always a huge fight between the two of them growing up. And it manifested itself in the approach to food, because one was a cook and one was a baker. And so
And at one point, I love, she says, only advanced cultures bake, right?
Yes, yes, that's right. That's right. Yes. She would say, I don't know how you people would celebrate if I weren't around. You just drag a turkey leg around like cavemen. So, I love that image of dragging my turkey leg around. Okay, so I'll read from there to there. Okay. When I am 9, I cook a leg of lamb for my grandmother. A whole leg, just the two of us, but it's important because in my mind, it's a possible culinary meeting place for him and her. When I suggest it, Graham says, oh, she adores leg of lamb. She hasn't had it in forever. This is the first dinner I've ever cooked for her. All day I fan away questions and suggestions. I'm as bossy and kitchen difficult as my dad. For hours, the big joint burbles in wine and vinegar on top of the stove and fills her apartment with a round, heady scent that makes you weak-kneed. I set the table carefully with napkins and water glasses. I carve and plate the lamb on top of the stove, then carry it out and place it before her. She lowers her fork after a few bites, her mouth wilting. What's wrong? I'd crushed each garlic clove, a whole head with salt, pepper, snips of rosemary, and slipped the paste into slits in the meat, just the way I'd seen my father do. The tender meat breaks into fragments beneath the fork. I could drink the braising sauce with a spoon. What did I do? Graham takes off her glasses and knuckles the corners of her eyes. Finally, she says, I like my lamb rare, with mint jelly. Her voice is all pout. She sounds like my 4-year-old sister parked on the front step shouting, "Nobody loves me," rummaging through accusations until she finds whatever lines up with the way she feels inside, abandoned in the hard world. At 9, it's only just beginning to occur to me that I'm on my own here. The adults give you what they can, richer or poorer. Mint jelly. It is accusation and insult. She has detected my father's hand in this sauce. Affronted, I want to slap the table, bluster away, just like my father does. But how do you argue with mint jelly? I took a risk and failed. It had never occurred to me that tastes and preferences could be so embedded in personality and in history. To me, deliciousness is still a simple matter. I don't have enough experience yet to understand how personal such things are, how you must choose the ingredients and tools slowly, putting together a palette, just as you build a life. Taste is desire, permitted or not, encouraged or not. There is no arguing it away. There's no winner in this fight, no recipe to follow. There is only blind faith and improvisation.
I love that.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's in many ways it's the theme of the book, theme of life really. There's only improvisation.
Right. Right.
Making it up, all of us
As best we can.
As best we can.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Janet. You have to buy the book to read about Janet. Janet is this sort of super needy nanny that they get, and
Oh boy.
you end up cooking for her.
Yes.
And even considering whether to take in her whole extended family who's become homeless.
Yes.
And there's just pages and pages of like Diana who has a newborn and she's trying to get to her writing and instead she's worrying about this kind of needy, parasitic nanny. And reading it, I thought, this is so female, right? This is what we do as women, right? We just take care of people, we forget our own needs, and we just want to solve people's problems. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought back to that quote from your grandmother who said, don't learn to cook, don't learn to sew. It's a kind of taking away, right? Yes. It's what women do, yes. Power through prohibition, right? Through yes. taking away. And I thought, it's actually Bud. This is actually your dad, it's a kind of aggressive giving. Diana's dad at one point invites a whole plane load to lunch.
The whole
right?
plane, after they had landed, and he turned around and said, "Come to my house for dinner."
So I really saw, after I thought about it, even though my initial reaction was, oh, it's so female to try to fix things, I really thought, well, that's, the more the Bud that I knew from your earlier memoir and the one that I met through here was really very much a giver and a nurturer, yes. and kind of aggressively so.
Yes.
So how do you see it? How have you negotiated these idea of what's a traditional female role, and what did you learn from your father about ways to make that actually into a very powerful stance, a
Yeah.
powerful way of
It
dealing with
is.
the world.
Yeah, I think that my father got a lot of power from personal power from inviting people. That was always the thing, that you extend hospitality, and that this was the great good that you could do in the world. And I felt like, when I thought about my dad's obsession with hospitality, I feel like in part it's coming from a developing country where you could starve to death. If you are from parts of the world, that is still a possibility. You could die of thirst in the desert. You could be lost in the wilderness, and so you don't take food quite as cavalierly as we do in places where it's plentiful. And so hospitality becomes a sacrament. It becomes this incredible thing in which you are not only extending graciousness and welcome, you're also, in a way, you feel like you're saving people, and that's how Dad approached it. He always told us, this is the most important thing you can do, is invite. And it used to drive him crazy if anyone came to the house empty-handed. That was to him the biggest sin. So everybody here, I'm telling you now, the big sin. You never come to the house without a present. Whether it's just, a bottle of wine, it can be anything, but you have to have something in your hand. And many times I have run out at the last second to the stop and rob on the corner because I didn't have something in my hand. So
Diana's a great dinner guest to have, as you can tell. On Sunday, she brought champagne and cookies. So.
Yes, the cookies were the important thing. Yeah.
As I said, I'm so sorry that I never got to meet your
me
dad, because
too.
he's so much of what you write reminds me of my own father. Of course, this sort of big-heartedness and just always, when we come home, when any worker comes to the house and my dad disappears, my mother always says, "Oh, he's probably taking them out to give them something to eat."
Yes.
And sure enough, they're in the back, and my
Yes.
dad's giving them drinks and something to eat. And so I'm sorry that I didn't get to meet him, but I feel like I know him through the pages of this book, and you write so beautifully about him, and very painfully also, because the book is about a new life, and it's also about losing your father-in-law and your father at the same time.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably painful, but this part where Bud is talking about facing his mortality and coming to the end, I think also shows a little bit of the humorous side of him as well. And I think it's ultimately an uplifting way to look at, something that we're all going to have to face, I think. And it's also a beautiful tribute to him.
Oh, thank you.
So just
Thank
this
you.
little section here
Okay.
where Bud is,
Let's see.
he's become ill.
Okay, from here. Okay. All right. So, all right. This is. I think this might be his last night. And the thing about my father was he stayed himself right to the end, which was so amazing to me. He had leukemia, and so you could see his strength going, but his personality was always there. And all right, I'll just to here. Oh, good, you wrote to here. Good. Okay.
A student.
I'm not afraid of death, Bud tells me. I'm just afraid of doctors. The days orbit appointments: urologist, GP, oncologist, home health nurse. In between, his cronies come to badger him into poker, betting on ponies, political debate. Occasionally, a visitor will want to make everyone bow their heads and pray. That's okay, Bud assures me. I'm going to slip into his accent. All right, let's just go with it. That's okay, Bud assures me. And Mom and anyone in the room, I don't mind. Who should I mind? I don't care. I need extra. Jesus, Muhammad, the Easter Bunny. Who prays the loudest? That's who I'm standing next to. After the holidays, despite all his predictions, Bud is still alive. Most of the visitors have gone, and Scott, Gracie, and I are due to return to Miami tomorrow. Bud proposes dinner. "Let's go out to somewhere," he said. "I'm done cooking." We pull into the busy lot. Not quite 5 p.m. and already a line of people winds out the restaurant door. Bud says, never mind, go on in, you'll see." We can barely squeeze in the door. The hostess must have looked past the crowded lobby and noticed the antsy 3-year-old, the elderly gentleman with the bruised eyes, and his post-holidays exhausted wife, because magically there's no wait. We're ushered to a table. As she passes out menus, Bud beams at the woman. "I don't care what they all say about you. You're a great kid."
That's his standard.
That is his biggest joke. "You're A1 in my book." He was constantly saying this to people. Dad can't see well enough to read the menu, but he never reads it anyway. He gives the server a million special instructions. He lifts his palms, makes rays with his fingers, as if about to reveal the most amazing secret. He tells the young woman he'd like a, quote, good steak. Plenty of salt and pepper, and don't be shy about the butter. A good salad on the side with sliced radishes, cucumbers, herbs. Don't forget a nice olive oil and lemon. When it arrives, Gracie climbs out of her chair and stands next to him, a hand on his arm, caging bites. He kisses the back of her head. "She's fluffy, but she's no dope." Bud watches us and the other diners, drinking in their voices. His steak has a good salty crust and a melting swipe of butter. "There, they did it," he says, still surprised when Americans get the food right. The room is filled with sliding black lights, currents of laughter. There's something aqueous, submerged about the place. The light has a winking quality. It seems we're on a boat together on a dark night. Where are we going? The beautiful black waves glitter, time filled with quiet distance.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
You guys.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Where are we going? One of the other stories about Bud that I love in the book is where the priest makes him sign a paper saying that he's going to raise his children Catholic, and he signs in Arabic, right? And the Arabic says,
"I make no promises."
I love that story. Let's talk about writing a little bit now. You're very honest about how difficult it is to write about yourself. And in a recent interview, you said, with a memoir, you have this kind of very literal, very specific kind of truth-telling that you have to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that means you have to dip into other people's stories. Yeah. You have to represent other people, and that's really tough. It feels almost transgressive in a way. I feel like I'm co-opting someone or taking something. I was raised to be a very good girl. Mm-hmm. So you are very polite. You don't upset anyone, ever, ever. And writing a memoir is kind of opposite of that. Yeah. And then you also, in the memoir itself, you say, you talk about confessing to audiences that you were raised to consider telling the truth distasteful, even reckless.
Yes.
Right? And I remember a while ago you posted a wonderful quote from Virginia Woolf, which kind of jolted me, because I'm struggling with this myself, writing about myself. It jolted me. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people.
Ah, yes.
Quote by Virginia Woolf.
Yes, yes.
So how do you persuade yourself that it's okay?
Oof, boy, it's hard. It's hard. And it is, I think it is an act of self-persuasion, as you put it, that you have to come to a point where you claim it. And one of the things that happened for me, there was a process of sort of bludgeoning that I went through, especially with my first memoir, the first time out. I kept writing this book that was like one of those extended Christmas letters people write, you know, where it's all about who got their graduate degree and who, you know.
Johnny made it into Harvard.
Exactly. It was just like that. I mean, literally, you know, my cousins are so illustrious in the family. So we have the same agent, Anna and I, and as you know, she's a bit of a human tank, and
She tells it like it is.
she does.
It's great.
Yeah, one's eyes unfocused.
It's great when you come from a culture that doesn't, right?
Right. Yeah, she doesn't understand. She doesn't know.
Yeah.
She tells the truth. And she was always after me. Every time she would read more and she would send it back and she'd say, do it again. Tell the truth. Well, what she would say, show me the meat. And so unnerving.
Joy Harris, she's awesome.
She's amazing. Show me the meat. And that Queen's accent of hers, you know. And so I struggled and I, you know, where's the meat? And I finally was talking to my mother about this, and my mom is so gentle and soft-spoken, and you know she's a saint. She was married to Dad for over 50 years, and I was saying, you know, this is tough, and she said, "Oh, honey," in her gentle way, I know you don't want to hurt anyone, and I know you don't want to upset anyone. I know you're worried about the family. But you know, when it comes right down to it, you know what I say about the family? I say, fuck them. Mommy, oh. What?
I'm going to put that on top of my writing desk.
Right there, fuck the family. So, wow, you know. But yeah, I think we need those moments, those jolting moments. We need those moments, and it did. After I picked my jaw up off the floor. Yeah, for me, it was kind of like someone had given me permission. You know, a very important person in my life had given me permission, and for good or for ill, I needed that moment. I needed someone to stand by that door and say, yes, you have a story and you own it. And everyone in this room, we all have stories. We all get to tell our stories. We do. We get to own them. Mm-hmm. And if somebody else doesn't like it, guess what? They get to write their book. So that's what I finally decided. Yeah. You know, I have a right to my version, and my sister, my youngest sister, who comes to my readings, and she sits in the audience and she goes, no, and she does this during my reading. No, that didn't happen like that. It's so great having a family. And you know, she gets to write her book. So that's what I decided.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice reminder also to be that person for someone.
Yes,
right. To be that person who says it's okay.
Open the door.
Do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember when I was deciding, I was 27 and I was deciding whether I should go to New York and get my MFA or follow my husband to India. And all my friends were saying, oh, go to India, don't leave a man alone, you know. And my father, of all people, said, well, you know, it's a good school. That's what you want to do. You got to live your life with guts.
Oh,
and it was like this advice out of the
wonderful.
blue that really, it had that same effect.
He was totally right.
Yeah, It, you know, it's a reminder to do that for people.
That's
you know,
right.
Because you never know. Just one slight word will you know, it'll get people to do what they wanted to do anyways.
Exactly.
But it'll give them permission.
Exactly. It's so important.
Yeah, I don't know why we're still asking for permission.
I know, right? I know. Well,
we're still the good girl, right? Somewhere in there.
Gradually, I find the older I get, you know, hitting 40, 45, by 50, it's like you just let it go. You know, I can't wait for 70. I'm going to be like, badass. You know,
You're going to say, fuck the family.
Yeah, I am. It's really true. You know, you just get to a point where you just say, forget it. I don't care. And that's incredibly liberating to let go of pleasing others. Yeah.
You're also very honest in this book about how difficult writing is.
Yeah.
Which I really loved, because I think not enough writers do this. And you know, the book, when you read it, it reads so effortless. It reads like, well, Diana just sat down one morning and started writing, and then, you know, just put the last period at around 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah. That's totally how I did it.
But you have this great quote in here, a great line, and it's about something else, but of course it's about writing. It's all about writing. Where you say the advice givers, and you had a lot of advice givers in your life.
Yes.
The advice givers are the ones who can make you afraid, but they're also the ones who offer courage, both things. They do it by showing you the ways they grew stronger and the things that gave them joy. The art is in what you choose to pay attention to.
Yes.
I love that line, because I think it applies to the way you live your life, the art of your life, and it applies to the way you write.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
While you were writing this memoir, how often did you have to resort to that, like the art of paying attention to one thing and leaving something else out?
Well, the whole way, you know. That is the art of the memoir, I think, is figuring out where the story is, and then you have to make those crafted decisions. You know, that's an issue with nonfiction, and I think that maybe that's why so few novelists make that crossover. We're used to that cloak of invisibility, the fiction cloak of invisibility, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. You just made it up. If anyone doesn't like it, I made it up. What? You know? And with nonfiction, there's an accountability. I think that's the real dividing line. I don't think that one is more true or honest or emotionally real than another. I think they're exactly the same. It's just that one, people feel like they own in a way that people don't have that ownership of fiction. There's a sacredness, you know, they give it to you, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's, you own your fiction. So you have to be aware that you are speaking with others, and other people are going to read that. And, you know, I was aware that my daughter someday could read this book, and it could become part of our conversation about all of our origins as a family. And so that's intimidating, but I think it's also important. You know, it gives you accountability. It forces you to push yourself harder when you're writing, to think very carefully about the choices you're making and the things you include. And for me, it made me want to be more honest. It made me want to not hide. And so I just kept reminding myself as I was writing, don't chicken out. Don't wimp out. Step up to the plate. And that was very helpful to me. Yeah.
Well, I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions, but I want to touch just very briefly on the question of motherhood and writing, of course, which everybody always struggles with, I think. And early on in your writing, John Gardner, John Gardner, said to you, you better choose, because you're a woman, between writing and having a family.
That's right.
And I was joking with a friend of mine the other day that motherhood is just another word for you'll never write again. But you and Zadie Smith and other mothers who are also excellent writers have proved that wrong. So what's your secret?
Oh.
Tell me. I mean, you talk about getting a nanny, how important that was.
Yes.
But it seems like there had to be some other kind of big psychic shift that happened.
Well, yes, yeah. I don't want to discount help, and you should never feel embarrassed or lesser. I worried about that I was deficient in some way because I needed help, and I needed help. So the nanny, and that's why I ended up slaving for her, because I felt like she held my writing life in her little hands, bejeweled hands. And so, but in addition to help, one thing that I discovered was that it's not necessarily just about time. That's what everyone focuses on, that you don't have enough time. Well, what I discovered was it's about focus. It's about the ways you fritter that time away and how precious 1 hour is. 1 hour can evaporate like mist, and you won't even see it go. But 1 hour can make a book happen. And so for me, that was the discovery. Well, actually 2 hours, 2 hours, because I needed 1 hour for the work that serves the writing, and then I needed an hour for the writing itself. And if I could zero in, do a laser-like beam into that 2 hour window, then I could make what I needed to have happen. So I needed to work very hard on that focus. And a big thing that came into my life was a program called Freedom, which took me off the internet. And that's was my lifesaver. That was my lifeline, because I was using the internet as research. Right. Research on Facebook, a lot of Facebook and Twitter research all the time, and Instagram. And yes, right. And so for me, it was about finding how to corral that attention and just make it work. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. We should open it up, I think. Yeah.
So did you go to India or to school?
I did both. Which is great. I spent
I
spent my semester in India, and then I went summers and Christmas break semesters in New York and summers and Christmas break in India. And then I took 1 semester off, which they let me. They were very accommodating in New York. And then went to Afghanistan during that semester. Yeah, so it worked. And that's the other thing to remember, right? It's not either or. You can rig
both.
it for yourself,
right?
And set it up. Yeah.
Sorry. You, in answer to the previous question, you said you need 1 hour to do the work in order to do the writing. I have a 2-part question. The first question is, what work is that to do the writing? Were you referring to?
I teach, and so I've been able to have an outside source of income that is not strictly my writing, and that's been very freeing for me. I feel very, very fortunate that I haven't had to press all my writing into the service of making money. I think that is very delicate. That's a delicate balance, because it's a way to, we were actually just talking about this, it's a way to ruin your art for you. It's a way to destroy the thing that you love. So I feel fortunate that I've been able to have a little bit of separation there. And so I spend an hour on whatever I need to for teaching and students, and then an hour separately for my writing. Yeah.
So the second part of my question is, there's the issue of time, but then there's also, if you have, have you ever had to deal with this question of turning off the sort of transactional nature of the brain in order to get into that mental space of writing? Because you could have like an hour or more a day, but more than just sitting down. I find that there's a part of the brain that has to turn
There's
off.
like an accountant up there.
And when you and then you turn that off, and then you get into the writing, and then when it's time to get back into the real world again, it's sort of like, now I've got to get out of that fog and get back to the
that's really true. There are these different pieces of the brain that work, and some are much more aware and much more tapped into things like the internet and socializing and, you know, all the things that are going on, your monkey brain. That's what Natalie Goldberg talks about, you know, and what I have found, I don't know about you, Anna, but
I don't write anymore.
Oh, so there you go. Okay. She has solved it in one. We could just disperse with this whole conversation, actually. You know, just give up. No. Don't. We're kidding. I find the more you do it, the easier it gets. Just very simply, the more you cultivate the habit of writing, and that's why I always suggest to students that they try to make it a daily thing instead of, like, you know, doing the thing in which you save up like your weekends and you go all week and you don't write and then you have this blitzkrieg on the weekends. I actually think it's a good idea, if you can do this, to find time, small amounts if you have to, during the week so that you can have a daily, regular dipping into that well. And the more you do it, the better you get. It's like any kind of training. It's just like physical training, you know? It's a mental training. And you get used to being able to flip that switch to toggle between worlds.
Do you find it's easier to do it in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening or just any time you can do it?
Yeah, you know, I had a writing teacher who always told me to do my writing first thing in the morning. And before Gracie was born, before that phenomenon, I did most of my writing. That would be first thing when I got up in the morning. And then, you know, that's not necessarily what's going to happen with the baby in the house. So then I found out that I didn't have to time it. I didn't have to be on it. I didn't have to hold myself to a certain time or a certain pen or a certain chair, or any of those rituals. All the rituals went. All of them became obstacles. All I needed was some way to get it from here to there. And if I could do that, then I could write. And the more you can divest, the easier your writing life becomes. Yeah. Get rid of the accoutrements. You're welcome. Carrie.
I look to see if I see Scott.
Hiding.
Yeah.
So, and there's little ears. But so when you talk about your gentle, loving mother giving you this very sage advice
Yes.
to the family.
Yes.
So a lot of the family you write about, you don't have to go home to every night.
That's
so
right.
How is that easier, hard? Do you kind of change that philosophy? How do you approach that when it comes to the family that you share meals and a home with?
Oh yeah, it's funny, you know. There really is something about writing about others, you know, and dipping into their stories. And you know, I've written tons about books and books. You know, I always feel like, oh, I hope Mitchell approves this. You know, this is like, I think Books and Books has appeared in 3 of my books now. You know, it's like, because so much has happened for us here, and so you become conscious of the stories of others and the way they flow through, and people are constantly making that joke to you. Don't people always say, "Don't put me in one of your stories"? You know, this joking half fear that people have. But I think there is an anxiety about it. Probably they should be anxious, right?
Yeah, most of them.
Probably, yeah, because they don't. We're not going to be nice to them. Yeah. So. You know, you try to be honest, you try to be true, and I think the more emotionally truthful you are, the fairer it is to everybody. And really, when you get into trouble, it's when you're trying to kind of excuse yourself. Really? I mean, honest, if you really, really think about it, those stories, all those bad characters and all those troubles and all the... Just think about it a little bit and you find out, at least for me, this is true. If the story is really, really nasty in certain respects, It's because I'm trying to slide out stage left a little bit. And so you got to keep yourself in the picture. Yeah. Sharon?
In reading your book, and not just this one, but your other books, definitely I see your father as a force, a strong force.
Yes.
But I also see your mother, even though you don't write about her a lot and her personality as much as your father, it takes a very brave woman to be married to such a force.
Oh.
And I see a very brave, courageous person in your mother, even though it's not necessarily written out in black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I'm going to tell her you said so. She'll like that.
I was married to a force. So, and I liked, when I met your mother, I liked her immediately.
You recognized.
I don't know, there was something in her that spoke to me.
Yeah.
And that's before I read anything about your father.
You knew.
But now, having read all your books, and I love reading about your dad. I do. And it's obvious to see how much you loved him. But it takes a very strong woman.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
To allow someone like your dad to be the force that he is.
That's right. That's right. I think that was the deal of their marriage, was that he got to be the storyteller. He got to be the colorful personality, and she got to live in the United States. You know, we didn't relocate the way he always wanted to back to the Middle East. And I can remember over and over at dinner, you know, the same thing would happen each time, where my father and his brothers, they would sit around and talk. And my mom she would get up and she would start picking up the dishes, and she would say, "And now the Arabs will tell their stories." And the Irish Catholic will do the dishes. Oh, wait, that's what she would say over and now the Irish Catholic. So that was very instructive to me too, because I learned I want to tell the stories. I don't want to do the dishes. You need both. You need the storyteller and you need the listener. You need both things, and that's how you learn how to write. Yeah.
There was somebody back there. I don't want to leave you.
No, I just was, we're reading your first book in our book club.
Oh,
So I
fabulous.
have just the
Ooh.
first memoir.
Oh.
And I was curious, in the beginning, in the preface, you mentioned a few apologies to people. And I wondered, are these really true stories, or have you embroidered, or have you, because they're absolutely charming, what I've read so
Thank
far,
you.
60
Thank
pages.
you.
So
Yes.
they're true?
Oh, yeah.
Everything
Well,
is factual.
I always start with the apologies. That's just how you do it. You start with the apologies, and then you go right ahead and you lay it all out there. And I feel like better to apologize than ask permission. You know, always. That is my philosophy in life. And yeah, it is true that the names have been changed to protect the guilty, which they all are. But yeah, what I did was I disguised. That was the big alteration that I made in both the books. I disguised names, identities, occupations, locations. Always trying to stay out of trouble, always clinging to being a good girl and not wanting to upset anyone, and failing miserably because the book comes out and everyone's upset. So, you know, I change to try to protect people. But all that stuff, all those things, all true. All true. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Anybody else out there?
Do you have a preference for fiction or Oh, I honestly, I think of myself as a novelist, as a fiction writer, but I seem to have this drive to write these memoirs. And yeah, there's clearly something in there for me in that process. And interesting, I've been discovering that I've just been drawn to reading memoirs lately. I love them. Do you love memoirs also?
Yeah, memoirs, and I find that when I'm writing, I don't read a lot of fiction, which I should, because I love doing it. But I feel it feels like work sometimes, especially if I'm teaching it, and it's one of the bad things about becoming a writer and being a teacher is that suddenly fiction is work.
It's work. I know, and we are against
a lot of
that.
science books.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. Finding something other than your work. So I love fiction. I do. But they're almost like separate passions, different children. Yeah.
Anybody else?
What's some of your favorite memoirs that you've read?
Well, I steep myself in kitchen memoirs when I write them. So that's what I'm really most familiar with, and I love MFK Fisher.
She's excellent.
Isn't she amazing?
There's a lot of her in your writing. I think in that sense of she writes about food, but it's not about food.
Right.
It's,
Right.
Yeah, she's a beautiful, beautiful piece. The Standing and the Waiting, which is just a heartbreaker.
Yes.
About the restaurant that's closing and the waiter that's been fired. I mean, it's just a heartbreaking story. It could be a short story.
Absolutely, it could be Chekhov. And I heard that she kind of always felt uneasy about being considered a food writer. There's this feeling, almost an apologetic quality that some food writers have, that it's somehow lesser, and I don't believe that. I mean, if it is considered lesser, I think it's a gendered thing, I mean, I've had interviewers say to me, are you using food as a way of avoiding serious writing? And oh yeah, right. I am affronted by that, because I feel like that is about how we're gonna live. Food is everything.
You can't feed yourself, you die.
Yeah, you need that.
Well, there was just this New York Times piece about how when women move into professions that have been dominated by men, the wages fall, and vice versa.
Oh wow, how interesting. Yeah.
So once men start writing about food, then it's going to be writing about
war.
war.
Exactly. It's true. Like Kitchen Confidential, it's tough and edgy, and I am disgusted by myself. I'm going to start writing like that too. Disgusted.
Even without trying to put a value on food as a topic, it's almost denigrating your artistic choice to write about what you want to write about.
Right? Yeah, as an artist.
You
Exactly.
substitute food for anything. Why are you
Absolutely.
criticizing what I'm inspired to do in this book?
I know, right? If I wrote about, a machine gun, well, if I wrote about war, that would be considered